There's a story about Route 66, an infamous road that stretches across the American heartland. Some call it the Main Street of America. Others call it a place where the past never lets go, where history and the supernatural collide. But there's one stop on that road, one gas station, where the boundaries between this world and the next blur. An old, decrepit pit stop where time doesn't work the way it should. Some say if you stop there, you'll never leave. This is the story of the Johnson family and how they made the mistake of stopping at that very place. It was a bright, sunny afternoon when the Johnsons, John, Emily, their daughter Lily, and their son Max set out on their cross-country road trip along Route 66. It had always been a dream of theirs to drive the legendary route, to take in the vast, open landscapes of America, the small towns, the quirky roadside attractions. They'd heard the stories about Route 66, the legends and lore that surrounded it, but they dismissed it all as the stuff of campfire tales. At first, the road was everything they'd hoped for, endless stretches of highway that seemed to go on forever. The kind of freedom you could only experience behind the wheel of an old car. As they passed through Arizona, the sun began to dip lower in the sky, casting an orange glow over the desert. The air was warm, the wind light, and everything felt calm. But that calm was about to be shattered. They were about to run out of gas, and their GPS indicated a small gas station a few miles ahead. It wasn't much. Just a flickering neon sign reading gas. Open 24 hours, standing alone by the side of the road, surrounded by nothing but empty desert. But it was enough. "I think we should stop," John said, his voice steady but with a hint of concern. "We don't want to risk running out of gas in the middle of nowhere." Emily looked out the window, squinting at the lonely station. "Yeah, I guess so. It doesn't look like there's another place for miles." Lily, who had been scrolling on her phone, glanced up. "This place looks kind of sketchy, Dad." Max, ever the optimist, looked out at the horizon. "It's just a gas station. Who cares what it looks like?" They pulled into the station, the old van crunching over the gravel lot. The place was eerily quiet. No other cars, no people milling about, just the faint hum of the neon sign. It was like the station had been frozen in time, a relic from another era. The windows were cracked, the pumps rusted, and the whole place had a strange, abandoned feeling to it, even though it was clearly still in operation. They parked next to one of the pumps, and as John got out to fill the tank, Emily and the kids stepped out to stretch their legs. "I'll go inside and pay," Emily said, her voice cautious as she headed toward the door of the small, dingy building. Inside, the air was stale, thick with the smell of old wood and something metallic, like rust. Behind the counter, an elderly man stood, staring at her with cold, glassy eyes. His face was weathered, lined with age, his clothes ragged but somehow still fitting. "Can I help you?" he rasped, his voice carrying an unsettling, eerie tone. Emily hesitated, but then forced a smile. "Just paying for the gas." The man nodded slowly but didn't move. "You're not from around here, are you?" Emily, trying to maintain politeness, shrugged. "No, we're just passing through." He stared at her for a long moment, his eyes almost too intense, as if he were trying to see through her. Then, after what felt like an eternity, he spoke again. Some roads don't just take you where you want to go. They take you places you don't want to be." His voice was low, his words cryptic, like a warning or perhaps a riddle. "Be careful, or you might not make it back." Emily, unnerved, laughed softly. "It's just a road trip. We're fine." But the old man didn't smile. Instead, he reached under the counter and slid a small, faded map across to her. "If you're going to keep going, you'll need this," he said, his voice grave. "It'll help you find the way. But remember, some roads are best left untraveled." Emily took the map, glancing at it quickly. It was old, yellowed with age, and the lines on it didn't match up with anything she recognized on her modern GPS. The route was strange, as though it twisted and looped in ways that didn't make sense. She felt a chill run down her spine, but she just nodded and turned to leave. "Thanks," she said, trying to sound casual, but her voice faltered. When Emily stepped outside, she could feel something had changed. The air had grown colder, the sun seemed to be dimming unnaturally, and the silence around the station felt suffocating. The family was already back in the van, ready to leave, but as they sat down, the engine sputtered and died. "Come on, what's wrong with this thing?" John said, turning the key again, but the van refused to start. "Maybe we should just walk to the next town," Lily suggested, her voice tinged with fear. Max, who had always been the brave one, didn't seem to notice anything odd. "It'll start soon. Don't worry." But Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. The road outside seemed to stretch on forever, but it was somehow different. The desert that had been so wide and open before now felt oppressive, as though the land itself were closing in on them. Then they heard it. A low, distant rumble like thunder. But there were no clouds in the sky, no storm, just an unnatural darkness beginning to creep across the horizon. "Dad, look," Lily said, pointing out the window. A figure had appeared on the road just at the edge of their vision, a shadowy, indistinct shape walking toward the station. Then another and another. John's heart raced as he tried again to start the van, but it was no use. The figures were moving closer, and as they approached, the family realized they were not human. Their faces were pale, gaunt, and hollow, their eyes wide and unblinking. Their movements were slow, deliberate, like they were walking in a trance. And they were coming closer with every passing second. "We have to go now," Emily shouted. But the words barely left her mouth before the ground beneath them began to shake. Outside, the fog rolled in, thick and unnatural, swirling around the gas station like a living thing. The figures continued to approach, their footsteps eerily synchronized, as if they were part of some dark ritual. "Dad, help!" Max cried, his voice trembling with fear. John turned to his family, eyes wide with terror. But before he could say anything, the old man appeared at the door of the station, his black eyes staring through them like he knew their every thought. "You should have listened," he said, his voice a whisper in the growing wind. "Now you're part of the road, forever." The family's screams were drowned out by the sound of the fog, the darkening sky, and the relentless approach of the figures. And just like that, they were gone. Now, if you ever find yourself driving along Route 66, you might come across an old, forgotten gas station in the middle of nowhere. If you do, be sure to drive right past it, because some roads, once you take them, you'll never come back from. And the man who warned them? He's still out there waiting for his next victim. Drive cautiously on Route 66. Stay safe always. Like, comment, and subscribe for more scary horror stories.